Welcome to the DSEF. The Direct Selling Executives Forum was created to be a place where real direct selling executives and vendors in the space can come out and share solutions to challenges that face us all in the marketplace. Our guest today is going to be unpacking a topic and sharing their raw thoughts for you to learn from. All right, let's go meet our guest. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next episode of the Direct Selling Executive Forum's Open Forum. Today, we're going to be unpacking the topic on frameworks for global expansion. Now, many of you, whether you're in physical or digital products, have aspirations to grow your brands all around the world. And with this topic, we're going to have a really fun episode ahead. If you're brand new to the DSEF, I invite you to go to the directSellingExecutiveForum.com or go to on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to join the forum. This is an invite-only community. It's free. You get invitations from other executives to be a part of the forum where you can listen on panel discussions, just like this one that we're about to have in a moment, of real executives running real companies, sharing their thoughts on ways to win, challenges to overcome, frameworks that you can use and apply to your own direct selling and referral marketing business. For today's Frameworks for Global Expansion episode, I invited Jonathan, we call him Jono Lester, to join us today. Before I bring Jono out on the call, as a little bit of a background, Jono brings more than 20 years of global corporate executive experience from the team at Cerule. Right? He graduated from law school as a native of Johannesburg. So yes, it's not Elon Musk, but Jono, right, has that accent. That's right, gang. All right. He's worked with Fortune 100 companies, large multinational companies, finance, HR, operations. When Jono's not at work, he's into motorsport, golf, fine wine, and gastronomy. So, man, this could be an amazing time for us together today. He has a law degree from the University of Johannesburg and an MBA from Bond University in Australia. Had the opportunity to get to know Jono over the last few years with his work through Cerule. And I'm really looking forward to this time together today. Jono, thank you so much for joining us here on the call. How are you today?
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing just great. Thanks, man.
That's awesome. Well, and thank you so much for taking a break from your planning meetings. I know this week was a big deal for the teams at Cerule, and I'm just pumped that you took a few minutes to step out as we get the next season filmed here for the DSEF and just for all the folks that are in the group. You know, as we prep for today, we realize that you're in 72 countries worldwide. And with that, you have created a framework for international expansion. And we're all about frameworks here in the DSEF. For the executives who are listening on the line that want to open their first new country, right, what would you invite them? Where would you invite them to start in their process?
You know, I think, Ben, having done this for more than a decade, I think one of the most important things is to really remove emotion from this process. I know the prospect of international expansion is super exciting to most of us, and we can let that excitement and that passion run away with us. And so I think if one can remove the emotion for a moment, you can really apply your mind to the rigor and the discipline that is needed to have a successful international launch, not once, not twice, but many, many times. Many, many pitfalls that you can fall into. And so I think if you can be really structured, really strategic, and really patient, you can work on eliminating some of the risk and ensuring that, you know, you have a better than average chance at being successful. So I think to someone who's considering opening their first international business, I think the first most important thing that you have to understand yourself and be able to really elucidate to your team that you're going to be leading is, why are we doing this? What is the why? What is our actual reason for an international expansion? Because that drives what is our appetite for risk, what does success look like, what does failure look like, and how are we going to manage it? And so when we understand why we're going to do it, then I think you apply a really structured process to deciding not only why, but where. The country selection is really, really important. And when we have identified what the country is, you know, then we need to focus on all the stuff that you need to know before you go. Right. So running a business in different countries is a really different prospect. There are different regulatory frameworks, different logistics systems, different payment methods, different business cultures. Everything about it is different. And so you want to know as much as you can before you go. Because in almost all of these international expansions, there is somewhere out there a risk that will kill you. And if you do nothing else, you want to eliminate that single risk that's going to kill you. So I think, that would be my advice, is take it slow. You've got more time than you think, and just be methodical and be rational, and don't let the excitement get you ahead of yourself. Yeah.
There's a couple, I like giving book recommendations on the panel. And there's a great book by Bent Flyberg from Denmark. It is How Big Things Get Done. And he unpacks the idea of this: think slow, act fast is so much better than think fast, act slow. And so many times when people do big projects like this, they just say, okay, we're going to Germany, or okay, we're going to open Hungary, and they just, we're going to do that. And then they just boots on the ground, let's go. And they act very slowly out there instead of putting in the proper time for the real plan up front. And it's so much cheaper in the planning stage to swap ideas and trade them around. And what will that feel like? And research today with tools and AI and everything that's available today, it's so much cheaper to just model it where you didn't even spend a penny on implementation before you jump in. I love that you shared Start With Why. Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, has been an absolutely powerful tool. And so if 2 books for just hearing what Jono's saying, gang, How Big Things Get Done by Bent, and Start With Why by Sinek is just a absolutely fantastic, great tool for you to listen to if you're in that position of opening your first country and thinking through it, defining the why. I also like that Jono said we need to define success. That's critical. I had a client who said, we're going to do 10 countries in 10 years, 10 countries in 10 years. And for their culture, that was too much. It messed them up. And they had certain markets they had to turn off. And what I remember is that if you don't define success, gang, you can spend 300-400% what you plan to in a space, or not even know what to say yes or what to say no to without a guide role. So that defining success, that defining failure, awesome framework, gang, to be thinking about. Jono, we're often told that success is a poor teacher, right? What are some of the greatest challenges you had to overcome as you expanded this business globally? I'm sure.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have learned from the best teachers in failure. We've done a whole bunch of that, and this gray hair doesn't come from nowhere. 2 really different types of failure, right? There's failure as a result of stuff that you can't control or can't easily control, and we've had a couple of those, and these are the ones that you hope they don't come along, and if they do, you really then get into firefighting mode. I remember clearly we opened years ago a business in Russia. Business was doing great. Overnight, the Russian ruble tanked. It lost 70% or something of value.
I remember that.
And your business is immediately in a world of hurt. I mean, it's just unmanageable. We were on the brink of opening a business in Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. We had staff, we had offices, we had inventory, and a civil war broke out that canceled those plans. We then pivoted to opening right next door in Ghana. That business actually did really well until the government decided overnight that they were going to increase the import duty on the product by 300%, immediately rendering our products unsellable. So, in those situations, these are really risks we can't mitigate, but there's a whole lot of learning that goes on. Frankly, I would have preferred to have learned some other way at times, but those lessons
are other plans.
Those lessons, I'll take the lesson and move on. But the other risks that actually we can control and we should have known better, those are the ones I think the most learning has happened. When you start to expand internationally, there are complexities that you don't initially foresee in running a business overseas. And some of those are complexities in running a different type of team with a different culture, different languages, different styles. And those challenges you don't often think about, they can be quite difficult to overcome and to learn. So again, I would go into those sort of situations with my eyes open. Again, some of what we consider normal structure and process and procedures here in the US just don't work elsewhere. And so I've learned that lesson a hard way over many years, particularly in the logistics and the payment space. The payment space is incredibly complicated in some markets, and we've learned some painful lessons on money in and money out on the payment side of the business as we've expanded globally. So yeah.
one of those areas, I just think that's so good at what you're sharing is like payments is just an example. There's certain areas where you don't want to be the first one. Payments is such a good example. Sometimes people in the direct selling space, they pitch this great new payment solution or this great new payout solution. And it's like, how about the one that's already paying hundreds of thousands of people? Or how about the one that's already processing millions of transactions? Well, we'll start with that one. And you're great.
You're spot on. I can't remember how many times I've told a company in a pitch, I'm not a guinea pig.
I'm not your guinea pig.
Yeah. I'm happy to be a fast follower, but
Yes.
I'm not your guinea pig, right?
Yeah. And there's so much to be said about that. I know when I'm putting together even platforms for clients in my work, like we've been serving people for 23 years. And so it's like, we want to follow what works, in this space. And then, we want to try that new idea. Perfect. Let's make that an option, and I find that all the time. So that's such a good thought of that framework is hiring someone who knows that market, who lives there. I have seen so many clients go into Europe and think, you know what? Europe's like America. They'll be the same way we are. And they're not. They're not. Only 39% of Europeans even use credit cards to make purchases. No. I mean, I go to Germany with my clients, and I know you've seen this, Jono, right? But for some of the executives who haven't been to Europe much, the client whips out a big old wad of cash for dinner, and it's dinner. We never do that in America. It's just it's everything. And our direct selling clients, many times we run into payment options that are relevant to that local area. Are you using Paystack in Africa? Are you using, support payments and GiroPay in Europe and all of the local ones you need with PostePay and everything else that you're going to need to do Europe properly because of what they actually use, and Africa properly of what they use. And are you relevant to even a consumer experience? So many times we can go in thinking, oh yeah, it's a global world. Oh, it's modern. It's just the way we do it. And they have modernized in a totally different way. So love that thought, John, of just.
And even over and above the systems and processes issue, then some of the soft issues like culture, right? So I'm not American, as you probably heard. I'm now Canadian, but born in South Africa. So I've lived on the other side of that. And with love and respect to all my best friends who are American, the rest of the world is not America. And American business folk tend to have a very distinctive management style and technique that doesn't always translate. And I'm sure, South Africans do and Canadians do. All I'm saying is we have to be sensitive to the fact that people are different. Teams need to be led in a different fashion. And as leaders, we just need to be sensitive and aware of that and take some guidance. Hiring really great, competent local people is an awesome piece of advice. Yeah.
This is one of the most important pieces you'll invest in, to Jono's point. Like having people who live there, do it, and have done it is critical. Some of you aren't in the place where you're hiring actual executives in different markets, but you're working with consultants in the space. Well, are you going to work with an American consultant in that country or a consultant from that country? Hey, you got to make that decision because it's a really critical part as you expand globally. Another question we always like to ask on the panel, and I love this for this topic because you've shared some stories that I think are all crazy. I literally remember the day the Russian ruble fell like that. I was in Salt Lake City at global headquarters for $1 billion direct selling company. And I was there doing meetings as we were building some new sales funnels for an American campaign and one in South America. And it all happened that morning, and a third of that company's revenue was impacted, and it was horrible. It was horrible. That week was just the saddest week ever for that specific brand, and it was just something totally crazy. Even as we record this podcast with the war in Ukraine, we were doing a large project with the largest Russian direct selling company in the world when they went to open America. And we put in months of prep work, and the moment Putin invaded Ukraine, whole project canceled, just done. You got to realize, gang, that there are those black swan moments that can come crashing through the window that destroy a project, and you just keep going. And those are the ones you don't control. But if you're able to execute faster And if you plan properly and are able to execute and get into a market faster because you took your time when you were planning properly, the time between you making the investment and getting the revenue is shorter. And so that's the one piece of value to hear from what Jono shared. If he had been in Ivory Coast for 2 years of actually spending money in investment, and then that happened, that was way worse than just planning at home and then only being there for a month, and then it happening. So that's one reminder as well. So a question from the panel: if you could go back in time, knowing all you know today, what would you do different as you work to expand globally? So if your today's self could whisper to your 15 years ago self,
to a younger self.
Say?
Yeah. I think there's two truisms, Ben. Things are never quite as bad as they seem, and they're never quite as good as they seem. And neither of those is your fault. So, I think with the passage of time and a bit of retrospection, you're able to see the things that seemed end of the world, disastrous, were a challenge, but nobody died, hopefully. And the times when things were awesome, yeah, they were great, but they could have been better. So, I think understanding that, my advice really would be to take your time and enjoy the process. It's going to be hard. You're going to work a hell of a lot, but take time to appreciate the process. I often reflect on the fact, particularly when I was younger and I spent, more nights in airplanes and hotels than I did at home, that, I never really gave myself time to enjoy the process. And, when we were up in Korea, for example, I went to Korea 7 times in 12 months. And, the project was a great success. We eventually opened. It was great. And I'd never taken like 6 hours, half a day off to go. And I knew the airport, I knew my hotel, I knew the office, and nothing else about the city, about the culture, about the people. And, that's stupid. I wouldn't do that at my age now, but as a younger person, I did. So yeah, just take your time and enjoy the process.
Mentally and emotionally, that is really good advice, Jono. I've shared similar advice in the past with people in my life of saying, I frame it a little differently. I say the lie of the devil is that it will always be this way. It's the way I like to say that. So when it's really good, the lie is thinking, oh, it'll always be really good, so I'm just going to overextend or whatever that is myself. And then when it's really bad, it's, oh, despair. Oh, it's never going to be better. And the lie is that it's always going to be this way. Everything you do, success ebbs and flows, gang. It does. And when you remember that each thing is a season, each thing is not unique to you. It's just one of those. And other people have gone before you and faced one of those ahead of you, and they made it out alive on the other side. You can have some solace in just breathing and understanding that, okay, didn't know this was going to be part of the journey, but I guess it is. And so how are we going to get through it? Can move back to solutions and out of despair or gluttony on the times that are so good on the other side.
Yeah.
Jono, it was such a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for taking a moment out of your strategy time to unpack global expansion for others. It's a reminder we have to hear often that, hey, every market is very, very different. And walking through some of those thoughts about thinking about what a local person expects and what a local experience should look like, feel like, planning properly before you execute. These are some powerful thoughts for the folks who are listening here today. I want to thank you so much for coming out here and taking some time to be on the panel.
Thanks. It's always awesome to chat with you, Ben, and thanks for all you do for the industry. We really, really appreciate it, and look forward to meeting again.
You got it. For those of you that are brand new, once again, if you enjoyed the content today and you want to hear the previous episodes here in the season, or you'd like access to future episodes in the season, be sure to subscribe on whichever channel you're listening on, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, Anchor FM. If you haven't yet joined the DSEF, we invite you to go to the Direct Selling Executives Forum and apply. If you'd like to speak on a session, let us know in the forum. Okay, that's where a lot of these speakers and topics come from. And we're always looking for more executives that have value to share here with the group. Appreciate you. Have an amazing day, everybody. We'll talk with you soon. Bye for now. If you haven't yet joined the DSEF group on LinkedIn, go to directsellingexecutiveforum.com or go on LinkedIn and search for Direct Selling Executive Forum to apply. The group is free and is an invite-only community of direct selling executives by direct selling executives.